Welcome to another edition of the Wrestling Retrospective podcast. I'm your host, Ernest EJ Christian, coming to you once on what's today? March 5th, 2024. And we're joined here, of course, by 2/3 of the Mindless Wrestling podcast, of course, DJ Minzer. That is also Rob Bonnette. Fellas, how you guys doing? It's been a little while.
Yeah, we're
Good so
it's
far.
been at least a month or two since we've been on here with you.
Yeah. The WWE 2K24.
2K24. You know what's funny? I never got into wrestling games, actually. Even back then, I tried to, but it's never really gravitated to me, though. The old Superstars games back in the day, the No Mercy, I just never got into it. I tried, too. But, you know, it is what it is.
I've always been heavy because I'm back when, let me see, the WCW versus the World was the first one I really got heavy
It's
into.
98, right? They come on 98, I believe, right?
That was for the I think the first PlayStation, and it was funny because like it was like a kind of a bootleg WCW slash like either All Japan or New Japan, roster, and so all like the Japanese wrestlers they had, they all had like different names because they couldn't, for whatever reason, they couldn't use like the actual names.
Right.
But if you had been following any of that stuff at all, you could kind of recognize who was who.
It's kind of like an NCAA back in the day, the name, image, likeness. You can't use the names just yet.
Yeah, like you knew the guy that had the long pants and the face paint, did the moonsault. You knew that was the Great Muta, right? I mean, but they had a different name. They had like a different name for it.
Or if you play the NBA games back in the day, Michael Jordan was not on there. Yeah, he was like player 99, number 99.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that guy, he was the best player in the game. Wasn't that guy? Wasn't Jordan though, but it was Jordan. You know what I mean? Anyway, so today's episode just a little different because we've been very watch long heavy on this podcast over the course of the last like 7-8 months, and on this a little different here. And it's something I've done. I used to do on my old wrestling podcast when I was a part of before I left last year. It's a thing called heel versus face. It's basically taking a couple wrestlers here and basically wrestlers / characters / superstars of guys who were babyfaces at one point in a career, or heel at one point in a career, and it's kind of segue. I mean, by the way, I have 7 episodes already set for this. 5 wrestlers on this episode. We have 5 another episode and 5 another episode. Basically, this laying out 5 guys here tonight, and we'll debate whether or not X wrestler was a better heel or face. Did you join the heel or the face? And that's one of the cool things about this podcast is being able to look back and have these debates. Obviously, you have the watch alongs, we have the rankings, all this kind of stuff. And this is something I really wanted to do. So we got 5 guys here. Well, it'll be 5 guys for now, but we'll have more females on the other upcoming episodes down the road. But 5 wrestlers here from any era. I picked out from my name and hat, and we'll debate them right now. So, guys, first wrestler I want to start, of course, is my favorite of all time. I mean, obviously I'm biased, but Macho Man Randy Savage. He's been both. He's been great at both, in my opinion. But was he a better heel or a face, DJ?
Boy, you would start off with the toughest one on the list.
Really? It's hard.
This one's very hard because Randy had an amazing career either way he went. I would have to say overall, he was more effective as a heel. Macho King Randy Savage was an incredible run.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely unhinged. I hate your face wrestler. Was just incredible. I think his original babyface run in that feud leading up to him and Hogan was fine. I think his babyface run later on down the road was a little better, but in my opinion, more effective as a heel.
I actually agree with you on that point is made. I'll elaborate in a second.
Sure.
Rob, who's better, heel, face, Savage?
I said heel because he was able. And not, I mean, he did great as a babyface also, but as a heel, he's one of the few people who could really just go all the way to just doing horrible things, right? I mean, like the thing with the ring bell and Ricky Steamboat crushing his throat, and the way he was the abusive behavior towards Elizabeth, and just I mean, he was willing to do that stuff. And everybody's not willing to like push the envelope that much to to get heat or whatever. And he was willing to do that. And and then I mean later on with with Jake, and then in WCW with Diamond Dallas Page. Um, I mean, yeah, I mean he was willing to push it there, right? And especially and nowadays when I mean I'm just constantly just exasperated with heels today because they rarely want to go all the way because I mean you need to do some you got to do some line crossing kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And a lot of them today they either don't do that or they do or they undercut the line crossing because by playing to the crowd because and all of that. And but when it was time to be the heel, Randy went all the way. Um, you know, there was no winking at the camera. There was no hey, please buy my T-shirt too kind of stuff going on. You know,
Especially in an era where heels didn't sell merch. He was such one of the few that probably did because
yeah,
you even see back in he was heel run in 86 and 87 before he turned face. You saw folks out there with the Macho Man T-shirts in the crowd.
yeah, and honestly, which is why they had to turn him face because he was one of those people like him and the Road Warriors
Mm-hmm.
and guys like that. Like they were just too fucking cool to keep booing, right?
Yeah.
So you eventually like you just had to turn them face because people weren't just people weren't going to boo them forever, right? And because look, I mean it's a show about fighting and people who are really good at beating the shit out of other people are eventually going to get cheered. I mean,
Yeah.
and, so
Well,
you could
go ahead.
you could never keep him heel forever. I mean
Yeah.
you always had. I mean whether what no matter what company he was in, they always ended up flipping him back to
Yeah.
to face because whether it was in WWE or in WCW or even back in Memphis in his early days when he was shooting with Jerry Lawler, he eventually ended up teaming up with Jerry Lawler like
Right.
before it was all over. All for the same reasons, right? I mean you just couldn't you know you just couldn't keep him bad. And
Yeah.
but he did a great job at being a heel and at doing heel stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, if I had him look, I mean, if he worked for my wrestling company, he would start out heel, and I'll keep him there. And then look, I do what everybody else did. You keep him there doing it as long as you can, right? And then when finally when it gets to the point where you just can't keep him there anymore, then you turn him face. But I would start him out by having heel for sure.
What's funny because, and by the way, we clean sweep here heels well too. Although I will say this real quick: if you're talking about WCW Savage, I would argue face over heel because he started as a face too in WCW '94, and his face runs I would say was actually more very effective in a lot of ways. His feud with Flair early on in '94, '95 was a phenomenal feud. I would argue the feud was better there than it was in WWF in '92. But Savage got more traction as a heel. That's the thing. He got more traction as a heel. It's funny because his height of powers in terms of success was as a face. Both his title reigns were as faces. But of course, that's also a time where the industry is different. Vince back there wasn't given the heels titles, the world title at that time. And if it was, it was more of a transitional thing with Slaughter or Andre / DiBiase. That's what it was. But Savage did more as a heel, and that's what makes 1987 so phenomenal. If you watch it in detail, like even as daft as the heel he was, treating Elizabeth like shit, the Ricky Steamboat thing with the bell and the question of his larynx. It's funny. He loses the title to Steamboat WrestleMania 3. And yet, even with losing the title, he's the made man more than Steamboat was. Now, Steamboat obviously leaving the company didn't help. But even I would say even after Steamboat won the match, and we didn't know Steamboat was going to leave because he was having a kid, Savage made out more out of that than Steamboat did. Because it was hard to boo him at that point because he was so over. He was also a great worker that even though you didn't like him, you got to respect him. And eventually, that natural turn the rest of the year, 87. You know, if you watch I'm watching the 87 deep dive like last couple months, watching the natural turn, you know, of Savage from heel to face. It wasn't like sudden. It was just natural. He got more crowd. He got more and more crowd appreciation, and you saw less and less of the heel tactics in the ring too as well. And obviously they did it because Hogan's going to wait a year later to do film movies, and you need to find the next guy. And clearly he was the next guy for that year when Hogan was gone. It's a fascinating thing because that term was so natural and so original. And of course you sprinkle Hogan dust to make sure it sticks, and all these other things make sure it sticks. It's a lot closer than people get credit for. I don't mind his 88 face run when with the title. It was good, but it wasn't this. You can feel if you watch some of his promos and watch some of the stuff, vignettes. He loses a little bit of an edge as a babyface, a little bit of an edge because he has to be a little more courteous and cater to the nice crowd. Okay, well now I'm the face of the company for a little while, and then when he's a heel, that what made Savage great with the edge comes back, the humor comes back, the sarcasm comes back. I have to go heel as well too, but it's a lot closer to being credit for.
Okay.
So, but if you're saying WCW though, I might go face over heel because
I'd have to go back and revisit his WCW baby because I was largely checked out on WCW during that Hogan Savage before the NWO.
Right, correct.
I was checked out largely. I mean, I kept an ear to the ground, and if they had a pay-per-view on that my friends and I were interested in, we would order it. But largely, I'm gonna have to go back and revisit it.
It actually mimics his face run, the second face run he did 91, or late 91 and 92.
Yeah,
it mimics it in some ways.
I'm doing another podcast with some guys, the Big Four Project. We go through the Big Four WWE pay-per-views, and we just went through WrestleMania 8, I think.
92.
Now Savage versus Flair.
The main event.
Absolutely incredible feud, absolutely incredible match.
Yes.
And it was a great little moment in time. But I felt like sometimes with Randy's babyface runs, they relied a little too heavily on Elizabeth for sympathy for him. And that's why I always go back to he was more effective on his own as a heel.
They did do less of that though, that run. See, if you look at Savage's both face runs in 87, 88 into early 89 versus the one in 91, 92.
Right.
The 191, 92, while he was a face, he was way more aggressive. He was way more edgier. Whereas in 88, you feel like it was a little tempered down.
Yeah, they were trying to water it down a little bit.
Right. I think by 91, 92, they felt like, you know what, he can still be a babyface and still be a kick-ass, because at that point he's a main man, and no matter what, and even as Macho King, as a heel, he was still getting crowds.
Macho King was one of my favorite.
My
favorite
God.
gimmicks of all time.
It's funny.
Go ahead, Rob.
I was funny during the 88 because like Hogan was actually the one that had more edge because that's when Hogan he was wearing like the helmet with the fist on it and he was hitting people with chairs and doing all types of stuff.
Yeah, it's why I told you a couple times back on the podcast that 88 year when Hogan got the title was one of my favorite Hogan years ever.
Well, it's fun because he wasn't champion, so he didn't have to do all the heroic champion stuff. He could just fight people.
Correct.
And that's when he was feuding with like Boss Man and and all those guys. And yeah, he just went out there. Yeah, he just went out there. He just went out there and fought people. He didn't have to do all the world champion stuff.
Yeah. Unhinged Hulk Hogan was a lot of fun.
Yeah, he was. And you see the early elements of Hollywood. Not quite there, but you see the early elements. But yeah, I agree with you. Savage, we all agree here. Savage is a heel, still respected. And by the way, I think the Macho King run gets so slept on still. But then again, it does because he's so great. Because pick an era, pick an era. Because even the 87, the 86 episode heel run was amazing.
Yeah,
as IC champion. So pick an era. But the Macho King run was phenomenal. Him and Sherry. I get the early run with Liz made sense. The yin and yang of Liz being the calm, cool, collected, and docile person, and the Savage being the obviously who he is. but Sherry matched Savage's actual temperament. That's the person that matches temperament. So, all right, next one. Go ahead. What?
To make an analogy for all you comic book nerds out there, it's like the difference between when Cyclops was with Jean Grey versus when he was with Emma Frost.
Yes.
It's a good one.
Good call.
When he
that's a good one.
When he was with Emma Frost, was just like let him embrace his inner, fuck all these people type of right. And
that's a good call.
And that's when he got more radical. Yeah, I mean that's when he got more radical and started acting more like Magneto than Professor X. And Sherry was kind of the same way with Savage. Just he got to embrace his inner, just fuck everybody, and I don't give a shit, and.
No, I agree with that 100%. That's a great call there. All right, next one here. The Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, heel face. Rob.
Ooh, depends on when. Mm-hmm. Okay, like the after he came back from the injury, and when he was a legit better person.
Yeah.
I think he during that period, he's better as a babyface. Because he was legit a better person at that point. But prior to that, DX Shawn Michaels, the original DX Shawn Michaels, and all of that era, and 100%. Because it was during that was it 96 when he was trying to be a babyface. It was. I mean, I wasn't really watching them, but the little bit that I've watched of it, it looks just forced and. And not real. And of course, because look, I mean, he was taking all the drugs back then.
Yeah.
So he was a heel in real life. I mean, but it did not feel genuine at all back then. So it just depends on what era we're talking about. So, after post back injury, babyface. Pre-back injury, heel.
Interesting. Okay. DJ.
Absolutely everything Shawn did. You got to break Shawn's career up into two separate careers. There's early Shawn Michaels up until the back injury, and then there's Shawn Michaels after the back injury. You really almost have to separate those two, and I agree with everything Rob said. Pre-back injury, Shawn Michaels was a heel. The boyhood dream click era babyface run was horrible.
I remember you saying you hated that a lot.
I hated that one, man. I was Team Brett anyway, but I tried with Shawn Michaels, and it just, like Rob said, it felt forced. It didn't feel genuine. It was very obvious that he was not comfortable in that role. And, when they finally turned him heel again, the original DX run is an all-timer for him. But you look at his babyface run post-back injury, there's some great stuff in there. Like some of his best matches came after that as a babyface. And so it's really hard to... Shawn Michaels is actually, because of the contrasts in the careers, the first half and the second half, he's almost harder than Savage is to pick one. So, I mean, I would say overall, probably a better heel because right after he turned on Marty, that Heartbreak Kid run where they teamed him up with Sherry. And again, Sherry just brings out the most incredible... And I have to feel like a lot of his more misogynistic mannerisms, she probably fed into that with him. She's probably backstage like, look, because I remember just watching one. It was like one of the first times they were together. He does his little pose in the ring, and then he gives her this little shove, and she kind of lays down in the ring. And I fully believe that was all Sherry. She's like, you know what? When we get in the ring, you do this. We're going to push the chauvinistic thing right up to the edge of what's appropriate, what's inappropriate. Yeah. And it was an all-time great run. Yeah. So, yeah.
They're definitely searching to what the character. There was a fresh character at the time, too. Very fresh.
Yes.
So they're trying to see, okay, where can we go with this now? He's a heel now. Where can we go with this? And then obviously they found
Sherry was the perfect person to do that with.
Which unfortunately they didn't stay together long, but, it is what it is. No, this is the easy answer. Like Savage was easy. It was a lot harder, but this is easy, even easier. Heel. I never liked HBK as a babyface. Maybe the only time I ever believed him as a babyface really was the initial return, as Rob said, when he came back in 2002, the first run, that first year when he won the title, when he beat Triple H at SummerSlam 2002, they won the title Survivor Series later that year, and then all the way through the Jericho thing in 2003 at WrestleMania 19. Other than that, I've never been a Shawn Michaels babyface guy at no point. I never believed that the click run, as you said. I won't go so far as to say it was a bad run, and I hated it. But you can never sell me to believe that guy is a babyface.
Well, that's what I mean when I say that. Yeah,
it's so unauthentic. To me, and not only that, for me, as a big HBK guy who I have top 5 all time on my list, his best run was between the end that click run. He loses to Sid at Survivor Series 96. He comes back, whatever, and he goes heel again after he loses the Smile, the whole 9. That whole run from 97 on to 98 before he gets hurt is my favorite Shawn Michaels run of his entire career. Now, I'm not saying it's better than what he did with Taker at Mania 25 and 26. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying, though, is that in terms of the character, in terms of the edge, in terms of the hide-up powers, whatever, that was, to me, his... Because remember, he's also a week-to-week work. At that point, he's also working week-to-week now, not part-time like he was later in the years.
Yeah.
That was his to me, that was his best run. And it's also my favorite run of his. The DX run was phenomenal. It's heel easy for me.
Okay.
So I never believed he was a babyface ever. So.
All right. Yeah, no, I got you.
Anyone else want to add something to Shawn Michaels?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Rob, you want anything after that? You good?
No, I'm good. I think we covered everything.
Okay, cool. All right, next one. Third one. Seth Rollins. Or Seth freaking Rollins, or whoever Seth Rollins you want to label. Is Seth Rollins a better babyface or a heel, DJ?
This one really is tough for me. And I know I keep saying that with each one of them. They're all tough. Seth is my current favorite wrestler. And I love whatever version of him I get. I got to lean towards heel on this one, mainly because, again, like this latest babyface run of his, the reinvention, has been incredible. Like the visionary, the revolutionary, the crazy, wacky outfits. Mm-hmm. It was incredible until it slowly started to not be. And I think Seth Rollins reaches a point where his credibility as a babyface starts to get compromised. Mm-hmm. And he's a guy that keeps having to freshen it up. And I think he's much more effective as a heel. When I think about his original Architect run right after he turned on the Shield, like Rob alluded to about Savage earlier, you've got to be willing to push the envelope and do the things. And heel Rollins seems to be more daring than babyface Rollins in terms of promo, in terms of in-ring work, in terms of how far he's willing to push that character. And I take as an example, several years ago when they were, I'm trying to remember exactly what the feud was. I think it was right around the time before Sting came in. They were doing an angle in the ring, and he had Edge and Christian in there, and he had, it may have been JJ Security or somebody, take out Christian, and then he had Edge in the chair threatening to break Edge's neck again.
Right.
And his work in that whole segment was really, really good. And it was so effective and so believable.
He was a heel too, right at the time, right?
He was a heel at that point in time.
Okay.
He was a heel. He was sided with the Authority. He was Triple H's boy during that time. So just for me, that's probably my overall favorite time period for Seth Rollins was as a heel. So I would argue that as much as I love his babyface run and he is my favorite, I like him more as a heel.
Real quick, the heist he was still a heel too, right? The heist.
He was technically a heel during the heist. They had to turn him babyface because obviously after the knee injury, they did a big, because even my girlfriend wouldn't, because she doesn't watch too much, but she peeks in and out. And who is that asshole? And she's talking about Seth Rollins. She didn't like him. And because she watches the way you're supposed to watch. Yes. Okay. If somebody's a bad guy on TV, she's like, I hate that fucking guy. I'm like, you're supposed to. That's the point. Okay. Yes. But then they did that special of when he hurt his knee and then the whole rehab and getting back into the ring and everything like that. And of course, they showed the human side of him. And she's like, oh, maybe he's not such a prick. She's like, okay, I can get with this guy. And then when they brought him back, it's like there was so much sympathy from the knee injury. It's like, okay, we've got to give this guy a babyface run. And it was fine. It wasn't his best work, but I get why they did it.
Right. All right, Rob.
I'm gonna say heel because because like a lot of the stuff DJ said, and also I mean some of his like he doesn't his speaking voice is Weasley and that it's his speaking voice is more suited towards somebody who's a bad guy,
Of course.
and that's um and I do think he's kind of the inverse of Savage. Is like he can be a babyface for a little while, but eventually it kind of wears thin, and you
It's
just got
it's
to switch
funny.
it back.
It's funny you said that because I said this. I've said this many times over the last couple of years. Like to me, his comp is actually Macho Man Randy Savage. It's almost identical when you think about it. The
Yeah.
character work, and you see his character work the last couple of years, especially too. It's almost identical too. Also, what Savage did in his career, different outfits and trying to do things and this and that.
I
Flamboyant.
think either on
And
our
because to me,
podcast
like
or something, we equated him to a modern day Randy Savage, just in overall energy and vibe, and as you said, the gimmicks.
Yeah. Go ahead, Rob.
so because like it's just like for example, when he did that promo right after the Royal Rumble, where he was basically begging Cody to pick him. To me, that would kind of encapsulated the character more than anything, like the insecurity and the need to be validated and the desperation. Um, like to me, that's the truest version of the character, and that's heelish. That's not.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, you can do things like I mean, you can kind of engineer things to get him cheered for a little while,
Yeah.
but it eventually kind of runs thin,
Yeah.
and you got to move him back over to where he should be.
Which
And
is
I will say there's a certain favorite woman wrestler of mine who is exactly the same way.
we know.
You can I mean, it's the same that you can engineer things to to have her be a baby face for a little while, but eventually you got to switch her back.
Yeah.
And so I think it's the same thing with Seth. You can move some pieces around, and you can kind of get him cheered for a little while, or get him seen as a baby face for a little while, but eventually you got to switch him back. My favorite version of Seth was when he was doing the cult leader thing, because that
Which one was that?
when he had
gouged out Ray's
Buddy
eye.
Murphy and
Oh yeah, a couple years ago, the Messiah.
yeah,
Yes.
when they just beat the dog shit.
I
out of
enjoyed that.
Dominic.
But when
was
they
fun.
beat
COVID-
Dom within an inch of his life,
COVID Seth.
yes.
I mean, like they gave Dom like a prison or an initiation beating. Okay, I mean, and it looked legit, looked like oh shit, like damn guys, can you dial it back a little bit?
Did you ever see the pictures of the welts after that beating?
I thought I did.
It was violent.
I thought I did. Yeah.
They beat
Yeah,
Dom like Ray wished he had.
Well, I'll say this real quick. Clean sweep here is heel. I never liked Seth as a babyface either until now. And it's funny because like I came back to, you guys know my story. I came back to watching wrestling after 17 years in 2019. That was literally in the middle of Seth's babyface run as world champion when he beat Rock at WrestleMania.
Mm-hmm.
I did not enjoy that whatsoever. I thought it was bland. It was not authentic. It didn't feel trying to put him and Becky together. And I know they were together and eventually got married, of course. Never liked that. Hated it. To me, I never started appreciating Seth until he started turning heel. Once the Bray Wyatt thing, the Fiend happened, and he started getting the edge on a little bit, it's like, that's the guy I like. Because once he turned heel in 2000-ish, around that time, and he had started having his grievances with the WWE universe, then I was like, okay, that makes sense. That's why I didn't like him, because he's not a good baby face in like in that way. Now, the role they have him now as a babyface, though, the reason I like it now, because it was natural. This is a more natural turn. He turned face in the last year and a half because the crowd played with it. It was the crowd. Yeah. It kind of mimics Savage's 1987 run. in a sense, where you hate the guy, but you respect his work, and eventually it just picks up momentum naturally with the crowd.
Yeah.
And I
It's the
think
same
because one
thing.
thing, well, now I think now, see right now, like the music and the outfits are kind of, I think,
And
giving them
that
some
adds to it too.
cover.
Hmm.
I think, and so now, like he's got a thing, he's got some audience participation now,
Yeah.
and I think that's kind of giving him a little more shelf life as a babyface this time around. Um, but eventually, I think and yeah, it may be coming soon, right? It's
I was going
just
to ask you
because
that.
I mean
Let's go
these
around the horn
I
here.
mean
Does Seth turn on Cody? I think he does.
Well, if Paulson Cody, you see
I
this
think
this whole. Go ahead, Rob.
it I think it might happen because again, the nature of the character is that he's a selfish, insecure,
Correct.
weasel. I mean, that's the nature of the character, and that's what we saw when he did that again when he did that promo where he was begging Cody to pick him for an opponent. That is the true essence of the character
That is
of
correct.
the thing. And so I'm watching him now. I'm just feeling like okay, and the way that he's just kind of letting himself be turned into the deputy here,
Mhm.
um, it just feels to me like again now we don't know what they're gonna do, but the way to me staying true to the character, this feels like he's being like he's just setting Cody up here because
It's definitely in play, and like with the Seth part here, with the Rock being back, with Roman being the minted guy right now, the biggest beneficiary of all of this is Cody Rhodes, because they're telling you that Cody's the next guy, and the best way to posture Cody as the next guy is to make him as sympathetic as possible. So whether or not he gets, whether or not the Rock, look, if the Rock's not getting crowds, is not getting cheers anymore, that tells you that Cody's the guy. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck about the Rock. I want Cody to be the guy. You know, which sets up Seth now to do what we can do. So no, I think that's definitely in play. Seth as a heel though, it's always felt natural. As you mentioned, the voice, that the annoying laugh, that's all heel. That's all heel tactics, man. That's classic heel tactics. You know. But I will say this face run he's been doing on, and the reason why I like it is it's a natural run. It's been really impressive, I will say. But I've never liked him as a babyface outside of right now. So that's just that. All right. Next one here. We got KO, Kevin Owens, Rob. Who you like? Face or heel, Kevin Owens?
um so I go either way because again staying because Kevin Owens the character at his core he's impulsive
Mhm.
and he's impulsive and he just acts on whatever the mood is at the time. And so he's not necessarily evil, but when again he's impulsive. So if he gets pissed off at the good guys, he'll snap on one of them
Yeah.
and and then be an asshole for a while. But then he eventually gets irritated by one of the bad guys
Hmm.
and goes after them. Um which one is better?
This is tough.
Yeah, because
Well, what is better, or should you prefer? I guess either one
okay.
applies.
I think well but he's another one of those guys that when he is working heel, he is willing to do the despicable things.
Mhm.
And and to not, try to get you to buy his t-shirts. Right? Um I think he's better. I think you get more out of him working heel. And I think in his case, well the thing with him is like the smart crowd of of the audience that they're never going to boo him because they remember Kevin Steen and Ring of Honor
Yeah,
and all of that, and they won't let that go. And so it's hard to get those. You're never going to get those people to boo him.
of course.
And I mean, he has unless he's beating up Sammy, right? That's about it. Um, but I think I think he does better work as a heel. Yes.
Interesting. Okay, DJ.
This one, I like both, for different reasons. I
Mhm.
like heel character Kevin Owens. I like babyface wrestler Kevin Owens. And what do I mean with the heels?
Yeah.
There's a lot more punch and kick and a lot less of the actual wrestling moves. Whereas Kevin Owens is a great wrestler, like a
He really
great
is.
in-ring worker with a good deep wrestling repertoire. And I enjoy seeing some of the stuff he breaks out. But as a heel, his character work is so much fun. Like to this day, one of my favorite promo battles was with him and John Cena. And John Cena tried to play the old veteran card, and I'm the veteran, and blah blah blah. This and Kevin Owens is basically like, don't tell me about the veteran. I've been doing this as long as you have. Was more or less, and obviously referencing his days outside of WWE, which at that point in time, WWE wasn't doing a whole lot of. If you think about that time period, under Vince, he didn't really acknowledge what people had done outside of the company.
Right.
And here was Kevin Owens telling John Cena, you don't get to talk to me about being a veteran. I've been doing this a while. And that was as a heel, but it was a good blend of, look, yeah, I'm the bad guy here, but no, you're not going to step all over me. I liked seeing that from him. As a babyface ring worker, I loved his pandemic era feud with Roman Reigns.
I did too.
Kevin's work during that feud, and this is not taking a thing away from Roman. Roman was equally as incredible, but as a relatable babyface fighting this mountain that was Roman Reigns and the early stages of what would become the bloodline, great run on his part.
No, this is tough, but I'm gonna go with babyface. Owens, he's just more fun. The thing is with him, he's so good, he can blur lines. As a babyface, he still has the edge. He's still kick-ass guy.
He's an a-hole, whether he's a babyface or a heel.
Correct.
That's the beauty of Kevin Owens. He's
and
an a-hole.
I feel like it's even more impactful as a babyface because if you can do that as a babyface, still get people to cheer you on, that means you're a main man. And again, like I didn't get to watch his early run, when he came to WWE, and he was a heel early on. I didn't get to watch that, in real time. So the face one, the heel ones I did get after, decent, not bad. But to me, I think I look at Kevin Owens and look at his best work and his stuff work on the mic. To me, every time I've seen his best stuff, it was always done as a face. So that's why I've always linked to the face. But it doesn't mean both are really good. Both are really good. Like what you said with Seth Rollins, I did like Seth Rollins as a baby face, better as a heel. At least this guy, I actually like both. But give me one or the other, I'm going to take the babyface one because I feel like I've gotten more of his best work as a babyface, at least when I've been watching in real time, than as a heel. This is my thing there. All right, last one here, finally, and this guy, of course, this could be tough. We'll see. Made a return back to WWE this past November. That is Mr. Phil Chicago, CM Punk. Rob.
Man, this is tough because I didn't really see him. I started watching again around like 2011, 2012. So I did not see like the straight edge society stuff in real time. But I mean, the little bit of it I have watched was really good. Man, it's hard to say because I'm gonna say babyface. Because
really,
yeah,
okay.
Well, because all right, I guess all right. As far as his actions, like the mic work, I think he can go either way. But as far as like I don't buy like him, trying to run somebody over with a car or something like that is just not believable for me, right?
Right.
Him going that extra mile to be evil just doesn't it didn't work for me. It just never felt like, but yeah, I'm gonna say babyface because my only reference really like when they turned him in 2012, they turned him because The Rock was coming back, and then Cena was there, and then they needed him to play heel. But to me, it didn't. It didn't feel very authentic then, and it felt very forced. So I'm gonna say babyface.
Yeah, okay, interesting. DJ, I want to hear your answer.
I'm going to line up with Rob here. My biggest exposure to CM Punk was from 2011, 2012 on till he left. I wasn't watching wrestling pretty much as a whole during his early run in WWE, so I can't really speak to the Straight Edge Society. I went back retroactively and watched his Money in the Bank wins, his ladder match wins, and some of those things just to fill in some of the blanks. But I would say I enjoy him more as a babyface than a heel.
Interesting. So I've never had a chance to experience CM Punk as a heel in real time. He's been back in our wrestling contest now for 3 years now.
Mm-hmm.
He's been a heel the entire time. AEW never turned him. But yeah, I watched some of the stuff in hindsight though, and his best work that I've enjoyed in hindsight has been heel run stuff, the Straight Edge Society stuff. Him, the Royal Rumble. It might have been 2010 when he was eliminating people over and over again, and doing this speech and about sobriety and all this stuff. And to me, that was great stuff. That was the heel. So it's hard because I'm gonna say heel, just based on the work I prefer to see, but have not experienced a heel CM Punk in real time, and that's the thing I'm missing. I haven't necessarily even really much enjoyed him as a babyface, honestly, quite as kept. The AEW run outside of MJF feud, a failure. Let's be real, it's a failure. Didn't enjoy it. The stuff he's doing now, it's been short-lived so far because he got hurt in January. So he's only had 2-3 months, and then he's hurt. So, So I am based on what I've seen in hindsight, based on preference, and I'm gonna say heel just because of the stuff I've seen. Now I will say though, the Money in the Bank match where he won, he beat John Cena in Chicago the day before his contract expired. He was babyface at the time though, but I feel like that was also was he a heel at that time also?
He was babyface then.
But that crowd though was obviously that was his crowd because it was a Chicago crowd. But
yeah,
but that was the face versus face feud with Cena.
Well, it's that was it. That was kind of the peak Cena hating from, so.
Hindsight.
Punk was like the de facto babyface in that match. Just
because
of the heat that Cena had at the time.
But overall, though, so Punk was the heel, was the face, no matter what. Even regardless of Chicago, not Chicago, doesn't matter. He was still the babyface.
Oh yeah, because he was railing against not just Cena, but against the whole kind of kayfabe WWE corporate structure. It was kind of a work shoot thing almost, and that was so yeah, he was a babyface.
It was like a Steve Austin light era,
right?
With CM Punk.
It does shock me when you look back in hindsight that Vince never turned Cena, even with all that. It does shock me that Cena still stayed babyface.
Well, he was ready, to my understanding.
He wanted to do it too. He wanted to do it.
Yeah, when I think right after The Rock, because I read an interview one time with Cena after the first WrestleMania with The Rock. They were kicking around the idea of Cena coming back being a heel. He's like, I went out and bought all new gear and everything in preparation for this. He's like, I was working on promos and I brought new gear. Came back the next week and Vince was like, no, we're not doing that.
Because wasn't early Thug Life Cena a heel, sort of?
He was. Yeah, when he was with Bull Buchanan. He was
right, but it was very short-lived, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, but it's what springboarded him into what we got.
Right.
That saved his career.
Yes, true.
Yeah.
That is true.
I just think, ultimately, I think it was the right decision to not turn him. Because
it's been too obvious also, I think. It's been too obvious. Okay, who the crowd says is do it, and then what? And then
that's the other thing. And then once you get past the shock value of him doing it,
then what?
Because and then they would have been cheering him the next week. I mean,
right.
And that's because it's just like there's some people like they want to see the turn, but then they don't want to see you actually be bad after it, right? I mean, they want to see you turn so they can say, "Oh, see, they finally turned him," right? And because I look when people on the internet were saying, were saying all those years when they turned Roman heel, and you turn, and I'm glad they didn't turn him when all those people were calling for it because they didn't put those people who were calling for him to turn Roman heel. They did not have Tribal Chief Roman Reigns in mind.
Mm-hmm.
They just wanted. I mean, they didn't like him. They were booing him, and they just wanted Vince to make him a heel because they were already booing him. Right. It had, I mean, there wasn't anything of substance to what they were asking for, and I guarantee those people did not have Tribal Chief Roman Reigns in mind.
No, they wanted to boo Roman without feeling guilty about it.
Basically, yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think honestly, that's what it was with Cena. Ultimately, I mean, it was because, and now if you contrast that with like Hogan, the difference is Hogan was in WCW. Hogan was in enemy territory. Hogan was not welcome in WCW. It was why did you bring this bastard over here to our neighborhood type of thing with Hogan. Even I mean, there are people who cheered for him because he was Hulk Hogan, but the hardcore WCW fans did not like the fact that he was even there, right? So,
Yeah, DJ hated that.
I was one of them.
look, it'd be like if the Commanders had traded for Troy Aikman.
Uh-oh.
We'd have been like, man, fuck this guy, okay?
Wait, so you're not a Cowboys fan, Rob?
No, I don't care how many touchdowns. Because look, it felt weird when they brought in Dion. Everybody was kind of like, man, really? And so Hogan was in it because everybody knew why they brought him there because they needed to make some money.
Yeah.
And he was not a WCW guy. He was not welcome there. And so when he turned and then because I mean when he turned, like people finally got to do what they've been wanting to do the whole time, which is throw a bunch of shit at him because we hated the fact that he was even there. Okay.
Well, Hulk Hogan, don't worry about it. He's on a future episode of this. I'm on the list already.
Okay.
Not today. We'll save that little tease there.
But just in general, if you don't have anything in mind after the turn, don't turn the person.
Right.
You need to, because I mean, there occasionally you see people wanting them saying, well, they need to turn Bianca Belair. You're like, no, they don't. Okay. No, they don't. I mean, after she beats up whoever, Bailey or whoever.
And honestly, I don't think they will.
No, look, I mean, I've heard her given the label Jane Cena, right? I mean, that's who she is, man. I mean, you're gonna have her stop flashing that $1 million smile on TV,
right?
Just to appease some people on the internet.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, really?
I agree.
Really?
Yep. Totally agree.
I mean, because that's what I mean. If she's ever going to be an actual heel, that's what it's got to be. Like she's going to have to stop wearing the sparkly clothes and stop smiling and start doing all and all of that stuff. If you want it to be her to be an actual heel.
I don't like it.
No.
Well, I will say the reason why I wouldn't mind it because we've seen Bianca as a heel and I loved it.
See, I didn't.
I didn't like her NXT heel run. To me, when we talk authenticity, it didn't feel authentic. Like that wasn't authentically her. This that I see now on my TV is authentic. They say the best gimmicks are pretty much you dialed up to 11, and that's what I see on my TV right now. Is her at 11.
Fair point.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, yeah, I don't think, I mean, again, because to me, and I mean, when she was in NXT, she was a black woman with attitude. Yeah. That's the kind of heel she was. And it's like, okay, okay.
Maybe that's not who she is then, I guess, then. Huh? You're right.
Well, no, she is not that at all. No. I mean, are you kidding?
No.
It's
more obvious now, I guess, right?
Yeah, she is the one. No, I mean, just her. I mean, her real life background and education and all that stuff. She is the furthest thing from that.
Okay? Yeah, you watch her shoot story, and there's no way you look at that girl and say, "Yeah, let's make her a bad guy." Yeah. The girl that fought what was it, bulimia or anorexia? Well, bulimia, wasn't it?
I think so, yeah.
I think it was bulimia and then the depression and everything that she overcame. There's no way you take that story and that girl and the woman that grew out of that.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way you turn that into a heel just because some fans don't like her.
Right. Anyway, guys, that was fun. You guys want to plug anyone to plug on the show or?
Rob, go ahead.
Well, I will. As always, every week you can listen to us on the Mindless Wrestling Podcast, me, DJ, and Jason. And every couple of weeks you can hear me on my own show, the Rob Venus Podcast. And other than that,
all right, DJ.
That's everything for now.
Yeah.
Rob already promoted the Mindless Wrestling Podcast. You can find me on Twitter at the Mindless Pod. If you want to check out some YouTube clips of the show, you can find us on YouTube at the Mindless Wrestling Podcast. Also, if you're inclined, you can follow us on Facebook. Again, the Mindless Wrestling Podcast.
All right, fellas, it's awesome as always. We'll do this again soon.